What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Tuesday Track Talk, episode number 26 with your Three Stones pit crew. I'm your tire changer, Cam,
I'm your Jackman Kellen.
I'm your gas man, Cam.
and I know we say this every week, but God damn it, I think we got ourselves a doozy of an episode here today. Uh, a lot of stuff happened over the week and the weekend, so we'll try and cover as much of it as we can. But we'll do some race recaps from Rattler 250, Hunt the Front, obviously NASCAR, and then we'll kind of cover in the two big elephants in the room with the tire situation and probably the craziest 48 hours in dirt late models ever. So with that in mind, what's going on, fellas?
On the mend. Yay.
What's
That's
up,
good.
man? Oh,
We
go
got
ahead.
had the chance that you managed to come down, so that was another weekend. That was two in a row.
Yeah, I celebrated making another trip around the sun a little bit this weekend and
Yep, we'll just leave it at that.
yeah, yikes.
But yeah, no, I mean, could use a little heat on the earth a little bit. I'd like to get that back again. It's supposed to snow this week, so welcome to the end of March, spring when
Yeah.
it's 70 degrees. Last week you can walk around in a t-shirt. Now it's going to snow this week, so yippee.
So yeah,
But
that kind of reminds me. I'm going to Joplin here for work this week. Oh, it's supposed to be 70 tomorrow. How about that?
yeah, awesome. Great for you.
Oh, I mean, I didn't make the trip, but the only thing I got on my mind is tires. Asphalt and dirt. That's the only thing that's on my mind is tires,
I may have
baby.
blew a few tires this weekend too, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, well, I'm ready. Let's. This is the most polarizing episode yet. Let's get into this.
All right, well, let's start with the Rattler 250. Let's get some race recaps out of the way here. First off, we got moved up, which is kind of unprecedented, but we've had it now twice this year, especially with the Clash. Now this, but the Rattler 250 got moved up to Saturday, so we had a double header with the Baby Rattler and the Rattler 250. Real quick on the Baby one, Jake Finch was your winner there. A couple of the Midwest guys did really good. We had a couple top tens out of them. Jerry Miller and Mike Litchfield. Always good to see a Midwest presence there. But obviously, the main event was the 250.
Oh,
And
one
we'll
thought on the Baby Rattler. I saw a
go
picture
for it.
of Jake Finch in practice, and the nose of the car was like this high off the ground,
Yep.
and it was a meme, and it said, "When you leave the riders in to go out for practice," like that thing was set up like a
Yeah.
spaceship. I'm
Yep.
like, oh my god! But no, that was funny.
um, had a little bit of a Midwest presence here in the 250 as well. You had Mondyke, Summers, and Nason out there, and really all the guys kind of had a mixed weekend as far as the event
Yeah,
went.
Nason. I mean, he was good in practice. It just if you looked at his Facebook, it was the fuel pump took and then a whole bunch of emojis.
Yep.
So obviously fuel pump mechanical issues takes Nason out of that one. But yeah, he was good in practice.
Yeah.
So you can hang your hat on that and know that you were there and ready to rock and roll. Just nothing you could do about that. So
Struggles with
bummer.
Stephen Assey continues too, only makes it 12 laps in that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, he
I
broke as
didn't,
well.
I didn't get to see the race, so just clarifying that. But somebody who you're scrolling on the finishing list again, and we just talked about struggling, Augie Grill.
Yeah.
No.
He was going to be one of the big favorites coming into that. And yeah, he just struggled hard again.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Sommers, he finished 11th, had a fast car, but just luck didn't quite go his way. I know he narrowly escaped one of the wrecks over there in turn two.
And he had a flat earlier, right front flat, I think.
Yeah.
Ran something over. He was up by the wall, came down, got that changed, and then
Yep.
he was kind of, as they would say, when you race with the squirrels, get your nuts cracked. He was back in that neighborhood most of the
Yeah.
night, unfortunately. But salvage to finish the cars in one piece. I mean, for a 250 lap feature, you can't really ask for anything more than that.
And it gets us questioning if he's going to be running 5 flags with the ASA tour. And like I was mentioning to you too, I'm like, coming out of that race in one piece is going to be probably a big factor as far as if he makes that race or not.
Yeah, for sure. But
Keep making our way up. Jeremy Doss started out front with Jet Nolan, just kind of slowly faded his way back there throughout the middle of the race. Him and Nolan were going back and forth there for a little bit towards the beginning of that race, while Bubba Pollard started 13th and was kind of slowly picking his way and methodically picking his way through the field.
And I feel
yeah,
like that's the same story on repeat for Bubba.
honestly, just flexing on him.
Yep.
And that was the same case with that ASA race at New Smyrna when he was running down Majeski. It wasn't there at the beginning. Let those guys race hard, and he just slowly and methodically didn't use up his stuff, but slowly and methodically just picked them off one at a time, kept his car clean, and then when it's go time, it's like you swear. His sister gives him the, hey, there's 40 to go, you can burn. And it's
Yep.
just like, all right.
On.
And he's there, and he's got the lead, and he's got about a half straightaway lead.
Yeah,
Wasn't
he's
playing
got
that much this race, but
and even then, he's got 3 big wins already on the year. He's got the Speedfest 150 back in January, the ASA race, like you mentioned, at New Smyrna, and now this one coming in with it. And really, he's coming off of a very, very strong Snowball Derby performance as well. So, I mean, he's been clicking literally on all cylinders so
And
far this
for
year.
him, kind of a side note on that is, I want to talk about having momentum, getting ready to go race the Xfinity car.
bingo, I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
gonna bring it up.
Well, hang on. Did you guys see he's going for the triple header at Five Flags?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's going to run the Crown Vics, the ARCA car, and his super late model.
Yep.
He's talking about like his lift points. He said he's going to have to take a whole roll of tape out to the track and set his different marks. I'm like, good
Put him on
Lord.
the wall.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That'll be interesting to see, just to see. I mean, obviously, one with the ASA race, if he can keep his momentum going, but especially that ARCA race, kind of getting in a little bit bigger car, heavier car. It's
And
kind
more
of
speed.
his, just gonna be interesting to see what he can do, especially a track that he's very familiar with. So,
The dude's, he knows how to get around Five Flags.
yep. We talk about Bubba. He was the eventual winner of this race, flexing his muscle again. Took the lead at the second half of the race with about 80 to go and just kind of minded his own. But Jake Finch was there trying to pounce on a mistake that Bubba had and damn near swept the weekend.
Yeah, he tried for sure. He was somebody to reckon with as well.
Anytime, the unfortunate part is anytime you're relying on a mistake from Bubba,
Yeah, good luck with that.
good luck.
Yep.
It's going to have to be someone else's mistake he gets caught in.
Yep, exactly. But again, Jake Finch had a really strong car too, came on as of late, and he could be another one that he's starting to hit on all cylinders here as of late, and can be a guy to keep an eye out for. So
Couple other
overall,
I was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say a couple other notables. Michael Hine P4, and then another Wisconsin guy, Justin Monday, rounds out the podium. So
Yeah.
kind of his initial goal of it for the year looked good. So kind of 2 other notables for that one.
I should mention too, this is the newly rebranded UARA National Tour, which was previously the SRL Series.
Yeah.
So their next race is gonna be June 1st. So they got quite a break before they hit their next race up. Obviously, they also have the Bigley Memorial at the end of the year as well. So
Mhm.
2 of their big crown jewel races for them. But no, overall, just another good race. Bubba doing his thing, pretty clean for the most part. A lot of guys made it out of there unscathed. And the only time Bubba likes that Rattler is when he's sitting in that victor lane. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that quote. That's the only time he wants to be close to a Rattler. So
Well,
and
did you see the video? I think it was the Outlaw race. I can't remember the dude's name that won it, but he almost refused to go stand in between those two snakes. He was like walking up, and they like pushed him in there. I'm like, dude, I don't blame you.
yep. The photo that I'm looking at right here from Racing America, he's got 3 Rattlers two guys are kneeled beside him, and the one guy is back behind him with the snake over his shoulders.
I I guess for the payday he had, I'd probably be okay to hop in there too.
Yep, yep. So that makes him a three-time winner of this race. Got to boost the Midwest here a little bit. Still not the all-time winningest with Majeski sitting there at 5, but
Yeah.
Bubba's keep making a name for his case. So
Yeah, I would say give him 2 years and he'll probably be tied.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
At this rate. But no, the asphalt super late models, it's good racing. I didn't get to watch the race, but it's fun to just follow along because us up in Wisconsin, it just keeps giving us
We're
that
getting
inch,
antsy.
and it's teasing us, and we're officially less than a month away from when we can get to a track and see it for our own eyes instead of on our TV. So
Yep,
it's good to follow along with these races, big names, good racing, and keeps us satisfied until we can get to the track.
for sure, for sure. Otherwise, any final thoughts with the Rattler? Again, just kind of weather played a factor, but otherwise pretty straightforward race. And again, guys kind of making it way through. So
Yep.
Let's get this ship turned around, Stephen Nasse.
yeah, and he's talking about a guy that's been on a roller coaster of a ride, which we can go a whole nother discussion into that. But yeah, just another tough weekend for him as well,
He'll figure it out.
especially coming off that cars tour weekend last weekend as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
he'll figure it out.
yep. Something to get a little more up your guys' alley. The Hunt the Front Super Dirt Series. They kicked off again this weekend. This is their first one of the year, wasn't it? Because
Yep.
their original got rained out.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Friday, $5,000 to win, Saturday, 15 grand, and that Friday night feature got rained out. So the Bama Bash at the Talladega short track kicked off the season. So, and I mean, they had 46 super late models checked in there for that one. And you're talking the likes of Scott Bloomquist, Ashton Winger, Tanner English, Joseph Joyner, Corey Hedgecock, Brandon Overton, Chris Ferguson, Carson Ferguson, um, Peyton Freeman. I
Had a
mean,
lot of guys.
the list goes on, and Spencer Hughes is another one that was in there. So
You're leaving out a goat to dirt late model racing.
who?
Bloomquist.
He put him in there already.
Yeah, he's in there. Oh yeah, he was number one. So
My bad.
I
Sorry.
did listen and just kind of listen before kind of jumping in the race itself. I did listen to the Hunt the Front podcast today, and they did say that he does have his loyalty deposit in. That is Scott Bloomquist. He paid his loyalty deposit now. He's not fully locked into the series, but Jesse likes he knows some people that
May get some promoters provisionals if
they said next to whenever they run it, all tech will be the telltale of who's going to run. They just because you have your loyalty doesn't mean you're going
Sure.
to. And whoever was working for his crew, and they've got a little connection there with them, that they said, yeah, we'll see it all tech. So,
all right.
and they talked about it that schedule kind of fits the bill of what he needs coming off of that surgery.
Sure.
You know, not racing full time, he can still go run all the big Eldora. Their schedule set up to go run the big ones, and I think that's appealing to these teams that want a good regional series that pays well. You can go run for 15 grand on any Saturday night, and then you can go run the Dream, you can go run the World, you can go run all the big ones. So,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head there with the schedule. I mean, I forget, is there 29 races on the schedule?
for Hunt the Front,
Yeah.
24.
Either way. But I think you just hit the nail on the head with some of these teams that why this series is appealing. I mean, one, you talk about paydays, they're paying good money for these race wins. But two, a shout out to the best to do it, Jonathan Davenport. You know, last year when he mentioned like he wishes Lucas Oil would like tone back the schedule a little bit. Like we don't need to be racing 3 nights every weekend. Like tone back the schedule and let us dial our stuff in. So when we show up, like we've got it, you know, whatever. So I think this, you know, whatever the if it's 24 or whatever it is,
24.
they're paying big money to win races, and it's also like it's enough racing for you and your team, but also like it's not overkill. Where these teams, if something happens, it's like if you wreck your car, like it's not going to be detrimental to your year, or you have a bad few nights. I don't know. I think that just it's a good balance of, hey, it's enough racing, but it's not going to be overkill where it's hard for, guys like you and I to get up to the track and be able to show up and compete. So I don't know.
They're
I
him on the map.
yeah, I was gonna say we've been HTF stands from day one, and you watch our YouTube and it's like you think they're just a bunch of clowns that race, but it's like they are slowly for clowns, it does feel like this series is slowly but surely they're onto something and they're building something, and it'll be interesting to just continue to follow the series because I mean, like you said, they've got some big names. I mean, they're a bigger name themselves. So it's going to be interesting to see where this series goes.
We would kind of probably compare it to like the Wasota late models up here.
Yep.
If we kind of had a comparison to it.
Regional tour, yeah. That or
Yep.
even your MLRA, kind of the same
Sure.
scenario. But so for the race itself, back to the whole thing. I mean, you got your podium was Brandon Overton, Corey Hedgecock, and Chris Ferguson. Chris Ferguson, finally getting
First race of the year question mark.
first completed. He ran somewhere last weekend and didn't finish. He had some gremlins with that brand new car. So that's a stacked podium. You look at it, Spencer Hughes 9th, Tanner English 14th, Joyner 18th. Bloomquist finished 26th, but they said, I didn't catch it, but they did say he got kind of tangled up with a lab car. He was running 12th to 13th. So he was working on a top 10 for the first time back in the car in what's been a while. So
and you didn't even get Ashton Winger into the feature either. He didn't even make it out of the B main.
He didn't make it out of qualifying. He lived up to the old nickname of Air Force. We were just kind of talking. I was listening to their podcast, and Joshua Joyner, their series promoter, he said Winger, after they got the back out up, missed the heat race, obviously had to go B main. All Winger wanted to know is where do the provisionals sit? And he's like, well, your best chance is just to race your way in. And he goes, well, no, I just got to know how hard do I got to run it. And they said in that B main, he put it on the top just like he did in qualifying. And they said he didn't miss a beat and he was right back in there. So that was a scary tumble. So
Yeah.
have no fear. He put her up on the top and he let her rip. So
I mean, I think that's the intriguing part about Air Force. I mean, you watched him in some of those Lucas Oil races earlier this year. He lives by the sword and dies by it. And it's on the top of that racetrack on the cushion. And
yeah,
he lives by it and dies by it. When he's good up there, he'll drive that thing right to the front, but he is always flirting with it.
not
And
to tease the conversation, but Rocket, the chassis he runs, hats off to them for building a safe chassis. Let's start there. Crawled
Yes.
out underneath there. So kind of teasing the later conversations of it, but yeah, safe car. He was able to get out and just said, all right, what do we got to do? So yeah, that's a cool deal. I'm excited for that. Now they're one of the regulars may have a little change in plans, and Carson Ferguson, we'll touch on that a little bit, that they said Jesse was doing a little loving on Carson to be like, yeah, you're still going to run the series, right? And he's like, yeah, well, and then all of the stuff had come out on that. So they kind of had an inkling something was up, but they were
Yep.
trying to keep him around. So
Somewhat showing his hand a little bit.
yeah. And when we get there, how can you not do what he did? Makes sense.
Yep.
So, yep. Hell of a first show.
yeah, I was going to say, heck of a
No,
show. And I mean, anytime you're putting together an entry list, I mean, we're talking over 40 late models showing up. That's fantastic in itself. And then you go down the list and you already mentioned some of them, the Will Harrington, Overton, Hedgecock, Ferguson. Joyner himself, Bloomquist. I mean,
They said
those names draw people in.
they said between the regional series this weekend, the count they had 159 super late models in action this weekend with Lucas Oil and World of Outlaws not running. So when you look at the regional series that ran this weekend, there's 159 cars that were trying to make shows this weekend.
Yep.
So
Got to keep the paychecks flowing.
damn right.
Yeah, no, good start for them. And yeah, I'm not going to beat the drum, but it's going to be fun to watch a series. Not only the drivers that are in it, but just, I mean, this is only the second year in that series. So I think they're just going to continue to try to make it, as driver friendly and as they can and keep growing this thing. So it'll be a fun series to follow.
Absolutely.
No, if we got nothing else, let's transition, kind of start poking in on a couple of the big elephants in the room. But let's talk about the NASCAR Bristol race. And obviously we'll talk about that big elephant in depth, but let's just talk about the race itself. Obviously there was the whole situation with the tires, but do we think the race itself kind of played out the way that we thought it was going to play out?
Can I just give a quick comparison to what this is?
Sure.
What this race was. So 2 weekends ago when we were turning laps.
Oh God.
Doing our living our dream together
Yeah.
on NASCAR Heat 5. This race, if anybody's ever played NASCAR Heat 5 and you race it on competition mode and like you go for like 10 laps, you can drive it, and then all of a sudden on lap 11, you're spinning out because you have no grip in your tires. And then you can make an untimely pit stop and go to the back and literally drive around everybody. Like I was watching this race going, shit, I do this every week when I race on NASCAR Heat 5.
But the race itself, Van Grohl, I'm gonna touch on your favorite friend Jeff Gluck on Twitter. 87% said yes, good race.
So like I've been keeping an eye on like the number of voters on there too. How many people have voted so far on that?
40,917.
Jeez. So I'm gonna see if I can find his polls here and see if there's a list of like highest ranking polls as far as entries go. So give me some time to look that up, but I want to see if I can find that.
But no, I mean honestly, to answer your initial question, no, the race did not play out the way I thought, but yes, it was a badass race. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so I just found the list here. If I'm going off, so I'm just going off of the overall poll here. So Atlanta one actually had 49,000 votes.
There's still 12 hours on that poll yet.
Let's see. The next highest one, I mean, there's one at 29. That was Daytona's, that was the 522. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything that even hits the 30 range.
No, there's 12 hours to vote on that yet too. So
Oh, there's a 35. That would have been the Coke. That was the Coke 600 at Charlotte in 22 as well. There's a 36 Fontana in 22. So 22 had a few races that hit the 30,000 mark, but by far Atlanta this year was the highest number of votes. That one finished at 94.8% yes, if we're curious.
okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, early in the race, it was just utter insanity with the end of stage one. Like all of a sudden, it was like issue, leaders back to 16th, second place, 14th. Like it was just insane. All of a sudden, it was the fall off was like you snap your fingers and it's like, oh, yep, he fell off.
So, and I know it came very abrupt and nobody really planned for it, but how do we think the drivers and the crew chiefs adapted to the severe fall off of these tires?
1-800 Goodyear, we need another set.
So I listened to Danny, his podcast today, and he said it didn't matter what the strategy was. So he learned the first time when he had got the flat right rear at the end of stage 1 with like 6 to go. But he said he was trying to limp it around, but he said it was literally like one lap. All of a sudden, he's like, no grip in the right rear. And he's like, when he was talking to his crew chief, he's like, I don't give a shit what the strategy is. I gotta come in the next lap or two.
Yeah.
And so I think, I think the drivers did a good job um adapting to it, and you had to figure out, how much to push, and that's almost a asphalt super late model race around here
Yeah.
type feel to it. But I think they did a good job, and drivers, were probably a little bit shook the way it started and how quick it was, but eventually figured it out. And they said you could go, roughly 40 laps. But Denny Hamlin said, he's like, if you would have said to us, hey, everybody's leaving your cars, we're getting you guys the same tires and coming back tomorrow, he said he would bet between engineers and crew chiefs and drivers, he's like, they could take the same tire today and go 80 lap runs.
Yep.
They'll figure it out.
So
There's
I
too many
don't-
smart people to not figure it out.
correct. But
Yep.
I mean, I think they did a good job adapting to it. Now, I really did enjoy the fall off, and because I mean, it was awesome. I mean, somebody would drive it to the front, and then all of a sudden, 2 laps later, oh, they're back to 8th,
Yep.
9th. And so I loved it. Maybe not
Like-
quite the severity and as quick as it happened.
Yeah.
I wish we could find a little bit of balance. Like, we got, guys running hard every lap is what we're used to. And then we had this, like, hey, let's
The
meet in the middle here.
the overall consensus listening to the NASCAR radio throughout the day today was 80 to 90 laps on the tire. They felt like if they had been able to get that would have been the perfect fall off rate
Yeah.
for those tires.
Which would have played into the hand of having 9 sets.
Yep. So, obviously there were a lot of mixed emotions about it as well, but I think, and this is where I was listening to Sirius XM. Jeff Burton actually called in. He wasn't even on the schedule to join the show, but he called in to voice his thoughts on it too. And he said that with him leading the drivers' council, they've been fighting for, and I'm sure we all want it as well, more control in the drivers' hands and less in the cars themselves. They mentioned it on the broadcast too, and I forget if somebody else mentioned it. Oh, I think it was Eric Jones. Well, we're not talking about aero tight during this race.
Yep.
So it came down to which driver could conserve their tire the best and keep it from literally hitting the wall, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we all want.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, we all want that. And I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, but Dale Jr. was just absolutely loving that race yesterday. And I think, it puts it more in the driver's hands, like you guys said. And then on Denny's podcast that he mentioned, he's like, you want to know when it's a sign that it's in the driver's hands? The 3 oldest drivers in the series finished 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Denny, Martin, and Brad K.
The veterans.
Yep.
So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, like you said. And it feels like, there's 2 extremes. There's drivers that absolutely hated it, and then there's the other extreme of drivers that are like, yeah, this is what we want. We maybe not this severe, but we want this style where it's more in the driver's hands. It's not, you can run this thing wide open as hard as you can for the entire stage.
I think we're all in agreement that it definitely the severity of it was off, but we liked the tire fall off aspect.
Correct. And that's what they got, what they wanted. I just gotta flip the light on.
Yeah.
One more. So there's one more story I want to hit on, but I do want to talk about some of the, like everybody was talking about. All right, so where did this tire fall off come from? And listen to Larry Mack. I love listening to Larry Mack. He knows everything. He said, yep. He said the only thing that changed from last fall's race to yesterday's race, my bad, was they went with resin instead of PJ1. Track was the same tire, The weather conditions were the same. Everything was the same except for that compound. Did it play into much count? Who's to say? But that's the only factor that was different.
2 points I had, and I'm forgetting the first one. What was the original question?
The resin
Just
versus PJ1.
or just what do you think was the factor into the fall
Oh
off?
yeah. One of the things, not to just repeat Denny's podcast, because you guys can just go listen to that and hear all his thoughts. But one of the things he did say was he went back and he looked at track temperature. And he said typically once Bristol gets above 70 degrees, it takes rubber like no one's business.
Sure.
And he said this race, they were racing at 60 degrees. It was 60 degrees at the racetrack. So,
And that was some point that got brought up, was that the track was not taking rubber.
yeah. And so he felt like the temperature had a play in it, but it's funny. He was just like, Goodyear needs to go back to whoever made that tire. And he goes, just sit down and say, look, you're not going to get fired, but whatever you did, we need to know what you did.
Yep.
What did you change and what did you overdo when you made this tire? Because he's like, we need to know why it was that bad.
Well, so it could, if anything, you could dial it back and kind of find that meet in the middle aspect of it.
Well, so you were talking about the PJ1 versus the resin conversation. Well, even listening to Scanner, I've started to listen to that every week again. The guys were like, well, is running in the resin hurting my tires as compared to running up a lane and running in the concrete? And no one had an answer. They're like, well,
So
where do I run? Because you don't know what the tire wear was doing. And then it got to a point where you literally had guys that were glued to the bottom and glued to the top. And the guys in the broadcast even said, this is a real life experiment going on right here, trying to figure out what's helping and what's hurting.
It again, it literally put it back into the driver's hands on figuring out how to save tire.
Yep.
So they could have it in a long run. So
I'm all about it.
Yep.
I love that.
Sure.
The only part I do wish that we had less was, well, I guess that's still driver's hands, but the amount of blowouts.
Well,
I wish we could have a lot of fall off, but less blowouts, because old KY, Kyle Busch, it's good to see him driving in reverse again.
He's making a habit out of that.
Yeah.
Well, but he's got a point. I think he even mentioned too. He's like, it's better than trying to whip it around and drive it, because it keeps that tire carcass a little more contained.
Yeah. It doesn't continue to peel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
no, it's they were mentioning on the broadcast too, is it got down to those cords and literally it ran out of rubber to go onto. Those cords start coming apart and literally the air just seeps right through those cords.
yeah.
It's not that they're blowing out, they were literally just running out of tire.
So even an interesting thing, and I was listening to Joey Logano for a little bit. They were even talking about the date of the manufactured tires that they were given.
I heard
He
that too.
got an older set of tires that were set up or
so that was that extra set. That was that extra set that NASCAR gave them. They were last year's tire.
Yep. So they've obviously run that tire or had them in production. And it just track temp, resin, whatever you want to say, it just didn't formulate like they thought. And they told him, they openly told him, hey, just so you know, you were so bad because we got an old dated set of tires from the production code. Like, we should be good now because I wanted to use those up because we checked the production date on them and they were not good.
Yeah. It was set up for the run that they were about to run, pretty much.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and who's to say that we didn't know that from some of the other guys too, and that was the course of one of their runs, and we didn't know that, but they were the ones that, and I caught that on the scanner just listening to it, was, hey, those had an old production code on them. Sorry, we're going to get you back on the good stuff.
So then, like, I was listening to, again, bringing in Larry Mack, like, he was saying that Ross Chastain, when he went out for practice, he ran 49 laps, and 49 straight laps in his practice run. Never hint of, this tire wear. Tyler Reddick, he said he ran a lot of laps. He didn't. I don't remember how many he said, but he said I could start to feel the wear or the grip fading away. But everybody was on the same assumption of it's gonna rubber up in the beginning of the race. We're gonna be fine through the rest of it.
And I'll have to tell you, I even watched at one point. It was so overcast and cloudy. I was thinking it was going to rain.
Oh, sure.
Watching the broadcast, I'm like, you could see there's one cloud every once in a while. The camera would pan up, you could see it, and I'm like, the sun never really got a chance to beat down on the track like it usually does.
Yep.
And I was just looking at it going, oh, damn it, it might even rain yet today.
Stage 3 though, especially that last green flag run. Talk about carnage, but you got to give a lot of props to them guys for not bringing out a caution.
Yeah. That's props to guys figuring out what they got to do.
Yep.
Whether it be strategy calls or
Given
setup.
nobody wanted to be the one that was the caution, but
Yep.
it may have bit a few guys because you only had 5 cars finish on lead lap, but still, it just goes to the quick adaptation and how these guys can drive these cars.
You could finish 7th and be a lap down. You
Yeah.
take a 7th all day. If you'd have said you're a lap down, I'd have said you'd have been in the high 20s.
Yep.
You got everyone from 5th on back a lap down. Chris, you could be in the top 10 and be a lap down.
One point that I think kind of is getting overlooked because of this whole tire thing, and I rightfully so. Toyota and Ford's performance in this race.
Joe Gibbs in itself.
Yep. They dominated. I felt like, I mean, the results don't show it, but I felt like they dominated the top 10, top 13 like they did at Phoenix, and Chevy didn't exactly show up.
Correct.
It was Gibbs 1 through 4 there for a while.
Yep.
They were looking for their first ever 1 through 4 finish.
And it looked like old grandson Gibbs was going to steal that one away.
He was kind of fearless.
I was going back to watching Gibbs drive that thing because to your point, Kel, he was absolutely fearless. But the old pit road gremlin got him again. But no, one of my predictions on my team report card was that Gibbs gets a win this year. And so I was secretly sitting there thinking, come on, Gibbs, get her done so I can go on the podcast next week and say, yep, there it is. I was right. Go back to it and listen. But no, I mean, Gibbs is another shout out to another racing podcast if you want more racing content, Door Bumper Clear. But Spotter Brett said a couple weeks ago, I think after Phoenix, he said Gibbs is going to find it. And he said when Gibbs goes, or when they go to Richmond, he said, if you're playing NASCAR fantasy, I'd put every Gibbs car in your lineup.
And that's like, you brought up a point. I had this in mind. I think Richmond is going to be that telltale sign of, all right, who's got this short track package figured out? And again, Chevy, with the struggle that they had here at Phoenix and Bristol, albeit the tire situation, if they don't show up at Richmond, I'm going to be concerned for them, man, when they hit the short tracks.
I.e. the championship race.
Yep.
What's everyone trying to do? We're trying to make this. We only get to go to Phoenix. Where they go twice a year. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
What's the
They
most
already
like
went
Phoenix?
there.
When we get there, what are we going to put in that car that we know we can get the job done?
Yep.
And I mean, again, race wise, Chevy did look off the beat, but then so you look at Gibbs and the results don't show it from the racing perspective and the cars they had, but then you go the opposite way with Hendrick and it's like the racing didn't show up, but shit, they had 3 cars in the top 10 and the only one that wasn't in the top 10 was Willie Byron, who got wrecked early.
Correct. And even then, Gibbs still had all 4 in the top 10.
Yep.
If you really want to look at it, RFK had both cars in the top 10. You actually had Legacy Motor Club and John Harnevich in 6th. McDowell was up there. You had 3 Stuart Haas racing cars, 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Yep.
And Barry started up front. He was staying in like that 5th, 6th, 7th range there for a little while. I think Briscoe kind of made his way up there for a little bit. McDowell showed he's got speed again, but like I said, it's just Toyota and Ford, at least on the short tracks, they've got it in. They got it dialed in.
Yep.
You
That's
want to
all.
watch a fantastic video, and I think again we kind of talked about it last week. I think Stuart Haas is slowly building momentum.
Yes.
We're starting. It's not quite.
Barry.
Yep, that was your report card. I
Yep.
mean, I'm not ready to say, yep, they're back, but you can clearly tell the results and the trajectory feel and look much different than they did last year. And if you want to watch a fantastic video, go on X and I think Fox or the NASCAR page posted it, and watch Josh Berry late in the race when he got those 4 fresh ones.
Oh,
And they told him to just run it as hard as he could because he had to make up as much ground as he could. It's a 2-minute video, and just watch from his in-car him just dodging and weaving and driving around everybody. It is literally NASCAR heat shit. It's awesome.
but to that point, you finally
Playing on
got Barry.
beginner, just driving
Yeah.
around everybody.
You finally got Barry rolling too.
Yeah.
Which
So
is wild because Kevin Harvick says on the broadcast, I was driving this car as hard as I could last fall, and I finished 5 laps down.
yeah.
Same crew chief, same car, same number. And
Yep.
so it's good for Stuart Haas and the
For
sport.
sure. For sure. I think we talked a lot about this. One more point I want to bring up. Goodyear has already come out and said they are going to schedule a test at Bristol before the playoff race. So we'll see what comes of that. But so we'll keep an eye out for that. But
Screw
with
that. Take that same tire right back to the playoff race.
Let's do it. I'm here for it.
yeah.
Like Denny said, I mean, guys know now.
Yeah.
And
And
it's purely just what happened for this scenario to come about.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yep.
So, any other final thoughts here with Bristol, whether it's the tire or the race itself?
Well, ultimately, Danny Hamlin did win the race.
Yes, we should mention that.
touch
Hamlin did win the race.
Hamlin did win the race. So
Just did a simple.
Yep, as the one fan in the front picture, there's Denny going like this, and then there's the other fan giving him the old
other number one.
Number one. Yeah.
No.
Thrilling start to finish.
Yeah. And the last 2 points I have was one, it was thrilling. I again, maybe not the severity, but I thought that was awesome just to see the fall off, and that was awesome. So, was good. Was fun to watch. Another point I will say, initial ratings came back. They averaged more than 4 million viewers, so we're still on this. We're riding this high. So it's good for the viewers, or for the sport. And then the other point is, Denny peed himself for a second time. This time it was under caution, and he said, "Wow, did that feel good?"
He's getting old.
He said on his podcast, he said, "Oh, rumor." So Denny, there's a rumor that you did it again. And he goes, "Yep, this time it was under yellow, wasn't even under red." And he's like, "Once I went," he's like, "It's under yellow." He's like, "I'm still going. Wow." He's like, "Still felt so good."
Jesus.
God.
Anyways, but no, awesome race. It'll be fun to go back there in the playoff and see what Goodyear comes up with after they go back to the old drawing board.
Yep.
By the way, I know we keep adding points onto this, but 5 winners in 5 races. Just FYI.
Love to see it.
All right. Well, should we you want to hop back into the dirt late model scene here and
let's talk some more tires.
There hasn't been nothing going on in the dirt late model scene in the last week, I don't think. You guys,
I know I'm out of touch with the whole dirt late model stuff, but even I got an inkling that some shit went down. So you guys know the full story, so I'll let you kind of go from there. But basically, what do we need to know?
So here's how I think about this segment, and we're going to look at it in 2 pieces. Here's what we do know. Number 1, Bobby Pierce, Kyle Bronson, Devin Moran, Volusia in late February. Tire samples failed.
Yep.
World of Outlaws said, yeah, we don't like that. And they absolutely hammered those three. So,
Made an example.
correct. And Pierce has come out and said, we didn't do it. We didn't do it. His mom made a big, long couple posts on Facebook. They, innocence, Devin Moran basically said, we race with the highest integrity. We would never do that. On to Lucas Oil. Simple, very short statement. Game on. Now, that's the tire thing. That happens 2 days later. You have Hudson O'Neal out of the Rocket One house car. He's out. 2 days later, Tim McCready. He's departed Paylor Motorsports. Paylor Motorsports says, Carson Ferguson, you are now going to race Lucas Oil. Well, they've said he's going to go national tour racing. They haven't said specifically Lucas Oil. Take it or leave it. They've got a car on that tour. It'll be him. So you look at that now, right? Here we are looking at this, and just, I don't know, 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, middle of the day today on Monday, Rocket says, hello, Tim McCready, welcome back. So the wildest, and we were talking about this earlier in the year going, Huddy, with that Rocket house car, we were going to look at some dominance for the next handful of years, or however long he wanted to run with them. Well, here we are. He's now searching for a ride, and he said that they will temporarily have a piece, or he will drive somebody's car this coming weekend at for the 2 Lucas Oil races. So that is what we know. Number one, let's go back to the first point and just let's dissect this tire thing. I got a few points I'm just going to throw out there, and we're just going to go from here. Number one, there's been a lot of conversation around the dirt late model tire, and no, you're not supposed to touch your tires up to 3 hours prior to hot laps. So
it's one of the holy trinity of things you don't screw around with.
Correct. Well, it comes to, were they messing with them, or have labs advanced their time with their testing to a chemical that is not, in quotations, in the rule book, that is now detectable by test? Are the labs coming up with this? Is it a combination of things? At the end of the day, we don't know if they did it. They're going to deny it. Here we are.
It's one of those, only them and God know what happened with those tires.
So for a reference, I just pulled this up because I got to say this. I mean, so Bobby Pierce has come on and said that they're mulling the World of Outlaws thing because they don't know. He basically, his championship hopes are pretty much shot. So when you look at it, he got, this is just Pierce's penalty. $8,400 in fines, includes in that $8,400, $1,000 fine. They had to pay the $400 tire analysis fee, and then the $7,000 prize money. So there's your $8,500. Suspended from all World Racing Group events for 30 days or the next 4 completed events with the late model series, whichever occurs last. And then they docked him 294 series owner and driver points.
So I'm looking at the point standings right now. He's currently out of lead by 288 points.
Yeah. That was their penalty.
So I guess I'll give a few thoughts. One, clearly World Outlaws is going to make an example. Stop doing this. Two, it's pretty clear people are trying to do some of this stuff, because earlier in the year, I don't know if it was World Outlaws or if it was Lucas Oil, but there was at Volusia, I think it was earlier this year, the text message that came out and said, no kiddie pools, no this, that, and the other thing allowed at the track anymore. So we've had a run-in earlier this year.
Somebody did something at some point in time.
And so that was like hey, whatever you guys are trying, we're catch and win. don't do it.
Yep.
So we've had this once already, and
Now, the rumor had it, this isn't confirmed. The rumor had it was Garrett Smith in the 10. They had something to do with it. And then he went to roll out for the feature, did not make the call because he had either the wrong compound or not the certified tire. So, for those that maybe don't follow dirt late models, you basically tech in your tires. They will spray them with a stamp or a
There's a
stencil.
marker of sorts.
There's a marker. So before he even went onto the track, they checked him and they parked him because he did not have that certified tire per the officials on that car. So they parked him right out of the gate. Well, if you put the two and two together,
Yep.
right, something going on there. Whether he honestly just made a mistake, could be a new crew guy, made a mistake, yes, no, whatever. But they said right in there, all right, fine. See ya. Head back to the trailer. Sorry, we're not even going to let you on the track. So could have been an honest mistake. We don't know. But at the end of the day, an honest mistake turned into load her up for the night. That was, we're making a point of it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's just a lot of variables that go into this. And they say, well, why don't you go to another lab? Well, if the other lab proves the same thing, and maybe they should have done this right out of the gate when the first one failed, is send those tire samples to the second lab. Okay, you are now 0 for 2. Your argument of we want the other lab now is null. You know,
We went with your argument. They came back with the same results because they took 2 for sure.
all A, B, and C samples of Bobby Pierce's tire failed. They took 3 samples and all 3 failed.
Yep.
so when you're 0 for 3,
Yep.
it is what it is. That speaks for itself. But I guess I don't know that I fully understand, but his mom and his post they're begging for a different company, tire
Lab. Yeah.
sample lab,
A different lab.
and they claim that Lucas Oil refuses to use the lab that World Outlaws did. So take that for what it's worth. She says they refused, Lucas Oil refuses to do it. And I was a little bit taken back by the post because anytime something like this comes out and 2 hours later you got a post and the first thing you lead with is we are innocent is, I don't know, is what it is. But they're pretty adamant he did nothing wrong. And our good friend from Cedar Lake, Jason Ferger fan, Jason Ferger went live on Facebook last week for an hour and he talked about it and kind of took Bobby's side. So
I mean, for me, the thing that I felt most contradictory of the post is they basically said, yeah, it's the lab's fault, you're next.
correct.
That was the part that now I get it. There's a million things that go into this, and who knows if what came about that, but to say you're next, I don't know that I like that statement.
And the other part of it is I thought too is like the amount of races Bobby Pierce won last year and the amount of tire samples he gave after winning over $1 million last year, like,
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of samples he gave last year and he never failed one leads you to think like, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, so
But-
that was another conversation of, well, if this is really just a lab failure, well, then one, we need to address the labs. Fine, understandable.
Yep.
But they were just saying how if you gave 1 million samples and one comes back bad, is it a default of you just had to give 1 million samples and one didn't pass, or was there really an altercation or alteration to that tire?
No.
Now, right, if you are giving that many samples and you are really doing that well and just you're not popping anything, fine.
Yep.
But then we need to, then the lab needs to come out and say, all right, this is something happened here. We will talk to the World of Outlaws and get this situated. Fine. Own up to it. But I just find it really hard to believe that you can give all these samples and be good after a year like that. And then all of a sudden something's, oh, well, it was the lab year next.
Do we know if they took tire samples from everybody?
No.
So it's a select group at that.
Yeah, and I know this is
So I would want to know what the percentage of that, how many drivers were in that group and how many, obviously 3 failed, but what the percentage of that group is. Was it 30%? Was it 50%? Like what was the percentage of drivers that passed versus failed? That's what I would want to know.
and I've been listening to Hunt the Front just because Josh is their series promoter. They're already looking at ways to test cars, take samples when they're in the staging lanes before they go out to qualify. They're already looking into the logistics, and they've told guys that when we figure this out, we're going to tell you in the drivers meeting and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So they're already looking at it in a proactive sense of go ahead and bolt them on. We'll take a sample before you even go for qualifying.
I mean,
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy.
I listened to the Hunt the Front, the little blip they had on last week, and it's like, I think they said Bobby has gotten dinged for this before, but it was in his earlier years when he wasn't quite winning into this scene. But they're like, I know they're talking about like, well, people are saying, well, does this discredit everything he's done? You know, in the last year, won over $1 million. Is this going to discredit it? And one of them made the comment, well, if he did this last year, an $8,400 fine and over $1 million in winnings last year, I think he came out ahead on that deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's intriguing. It definitely has got the dirt late model scene rattled, which is why I'm repping JD, because that's somebody who's kept his name out of the news, with good reason. But no, it's definitely got it shook things up in the dirt late model scene, and it's going to be intriguing to see where it goes. And then
go on.
I was just going to bring up the last point of Nick Hoffman.
And Hoffman, we trust, baby.
If Bobby Pierce does decide, yeah, screw it, I'm going to go run the World Outlaws and prove to them, hey, take all my samples and I'll still win everything. I'd have to bet that Bobby's probably going to start racing Nick Hoffman a little bit different.
At Hoffman, we trust, baby. I've got a follow-up point, but then I got probably like a transition point here too. The follow-up point. And this is more of a question for you guys. What's the science behind doing whatever it is? I'm assuming it's just more grip is ultimately what it is.
Well, yeah. So what they're doing is they're watching how they're prepping the track, and if it's not a rubbered up track, they will soften the tires to get a little more grip. So they're just waiting to see how the track is prepped, how much water they're putting in it, how much they're tilling it up, how hard they pack it in. Like all of those pieces are going into ultimately because they do have some flexibility in selecting their compounds. They have I think it's 2 or 3 compounds that they can put on that right rear.
And even then they could cut their own tires too to be able to do what they think it'll do.
Yeah, and those 3 compounds are all within spec. Those are approved by
these are the 3 compounds that are here this weekend.
Yep.
So on and so forth.
Those national touring series have made it very clear this is what you can do. This is what you can put on each corner of the car.
Sure.
They've said and stated what the rules are. So there's at least 2. I think it's 2. It's the soft and hard tire you can put on that right rear that are within specs that are provided by Hoosier for these national tour events. And I even believe the compounds are the same between Lucas Oil and World Outlaws. So
it could even probably come down to the track. The track has a set 3 that
or whatever's within their reason, right? But
because they want to keep probably the close to the same rubber on their track as they possibly can for their local series and all that. So
there is some flexibility there, but I just There's a lot of
So
processing I'm doing with this whole tire situation.
so my transition point, and this kind of gets into maybe some of the driver moves that have taken place. Do we think, I mean, obviously the lab came back and did what it did, but do we think maybe some of these driver moves was also due to maybe a whistleblower of some sorts, or guys talking more than when they shouldn't have? Obviously, that's hard rumors and speculation, but what's the possibility?
I mean, to me, the timing was not coincidental, but like
Oddly close.
they were oddly close. Now, I myself am going to say I'm not going to speculate one way or another.
Sure,
What we confirm now is that Hudson O'Neal has left Rocket One, and Timmy McCready will drive the Rocket One house car.
sure.
Here's what we can confirm, and I do think, when you think about Timmy McCready's last 2 years here, he lost the Longhorn factory team. He was a Longhorn house car. He was a two back-to-back Lucas Oil champ. He struggled last year. They took the factory team and they shoved him with B Shep to go run World Outlaws. Now, I could see that part of being a little bit of Tim McCready not being afraid to jump back to Rocket. He also has previously run with them, so he has a relationship with those guys. So kind of a twofold. I think that's kind of a piece that gets missed in this, is that they took that Longhorn team away from him, and he was back with his crew of guys, and maybe felt a little bit slighted in that scenario, but also had a previous relationship with Rocket that, all right, I guess it's my time. And we know that Rocket One can win. He said, all right, I'm a savvy vet. And for all we know, maybe Rocket was looking for that. Maybe Hudson O'Neal got on his feet and there had to have been something that just
Sure.
happened. I mean, Hudson O'Neal was set to have himself an absolute stellar year, and he's now out, and Timmy McCready's driving the car. That's ultimately that's what we know.
Obviously,
And
this alters the. I was just gonna say, obviously, this alters the favorites for championships as well. But does this hurt? Obviously, this probably hurts O'Neal's chances at a championship this year as well.
So before we got on, I just finished listening to this. Lucas Oil is currently reviewing their stance on driver and owner points, because now, because of how guys are driving for car owners, Hudson O'Neal, if he continues to run Lucas Oil, he will have his driver points.
Yep.
As it sits right now, he will have his driver points. He could win the drivers championship, but you could have Rocket winning the owner championship.
Yep.
So
same thing as NASCAR.
this could be a very interesting scenario. And Lucas Oil has not made a statement yet, and we are going to wait to see how that shakes out.
They're probably, because you said they've got like a commit date, don't they?
Yeah, it's April 1st.
So who's to say that we hear something the following week?
That they have to have their loyalty deposit. Now, I love listening to Hunt the Front on this, because Josh Joyner is their Super Dirt Series promoter. So
He's in the know.
He's going, yep. We just added a section to our rule book on how points are going to finish for the end of the year. We're now figuring out when we're going to take tire samples. He goes, fortunate for them, they haven't had issues or transitions like
Sure.
this that they can learn on the fly. But it was pretty educational to sit and listen to him talk about how you could have somebody win the driver and somebody win the owner. Well, when the split happens here, it gets to be a very slippery slope, because either you're going to have a driver or a team frustrated, and you don't know what the collateral of that is.
So
a lot to
I'm gonna
unpack.
tie it back and kind of going back to the O'Neal move. Do I think it was coincidental, or did these announcements come hand in hand? I don't know. It's kind of ironic that somebody got zapped for tires, and then all of a sudden, I mean, people might not. I would hope people know the name Hudson O'Neal, but it's like, I was on this podcast about a month ago saying he's 23 years old. That is, you're defending Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series champion. We could be looking at 15 years of domination, and then we get slapped with this news. So it's like, Just like Patrick Mahomes going to a different team, wins the Super Bowl and then says, "Yeah, I want to go play for somebody else."
Yep.
So that's the comparison in the dirt late model scene. So that is wild. And the speculation, if you want a good follow on Twitter, we'll shout him out. Van Grohl's best friend and buddy,
Oh
Thonus
God.
Mason, Racing Jason. It's our tire, it's our tire changer's best friend. He's
He's gaining
he's
some
been
street
posting a
cred.
lot of stuff, and his credibility is going through the roof. And he
Coincidence
just
or not,
keeps
it is.
he's in the know. He keeps stirring the pot. But I mean, if you want to read speculation about why this happened, now let's be clear. Hudson O'Neill's statement said it's a differing in visions. His vision of where he wants to go and Rocket's vision. That's all he said. We haven't heard Rocket's side of the story.
Well, when Rocket put out their statement, they said, what did they say? Something along the lines of, he will forever be a piece of Rocket history, and he's they didn't say a well-standing man, but something along the lines of a good man, I guess
Yeah.
is what they had said. So,
But back to the point, I mean, if you want to talk about getting into rumors and stuff like that, go read Race and Jason, go read the comments and one of his tweets, and you will the stuff that comes across there is utterly insane. But I don't know. Go ahead.
Rocket One wishes Hudson O'Neal the best in his future endeavors. As a respectable young driver and man, Hudson will always be a part of the Rocket One heritage. That's how they finished their release of Tim McCready today.
So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely shaking the dirt world, and like you said, Tim McCready, who's been solid and he shows speed and he gets a win here and there.
Yep.
I guess it's not surprised if there was ill will there after he got the house car kind of yanked from him after, one, not his best year. It was 1 year and it just wasn't his best year. And then all of a sudden they're like, yep, we're going to go to B Shep. So I don't know. And then the prior relationship. So
Another opportunity.
And the Rocket One, they don't show up with anything slow. So it'll be interesting. This will be another shot for McCready to put himself not back on the map, but he's going to be, if I had to guess, he's going to be running up front. He's going to be competing for a lot more wins here moving forward.
So kind of the collateral to that, and kind of going back to my points conversation, Carson Ferguson goes and runs Lucas Oil. He's missed 5 features already this year. So he will be vying for a Rookie of the Year title. He's now missed 5 features already for the year. So he's in a little bit of a deficit, not by his own doing of any means. It just, this was not in the cards when the season started, and here they are. Now he's probably going to go run and try to win a Rookie of the Year. My sample size is now five minus whatever anyone else runs. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see what Lucas Oil has to say about the points. I'm intrigued on the points side.
See, the silly season's not over.
Far from over.
I don't know. You fellas got any other thoughts with this? I mean, obviously we hit a lot of what we all know and threw our little speculation out, but we all just kind of gotta wait to see what happens here for the next handful of weeks.
Yep. One thing I did last bullet point. I did see there's like 2 or 3 different scenarios that they thought Hudson O'Neal. Go drive for Boom Briggs. The Masterbuilt house car. So Masterbuilt's chassis house car. And then the other thing I kind of saw stirring on Twitter a little bit is the Rumley 6, apparently.
Which is their superstar car that Kyle Larson comes and runs when he can.
Yep. So very, very intriguing.
Yeah. Stay tuned. I would say in the next week, stuff's just going to continue to fall. It's definitely guys are still talking about everything. news still coming, and there's again more news to come. So stay tuned. That's the best we can tell you. Drivers are going to continue to talk about it. I mean, these guys are active on social media talking about it and commenting on stuff, and it's intriguing to follow and read. So
Yep.
Stay tuned. The ship's in choppy water, and I think it's going to be for a little while yet here before we settle in.
For sure.
All right, well, let's hit on some race previews here because we do have a couple of good ones coming up.
Yep.
Let's start with the ASA Stars National Tour. They're back at it. We mentioned it a little bit before. They're at racing at Five Flags this weekend for their second race of the year. 15,000 to win, 1,500 to start. The Sunshine State 200, 200 lap future. Obviously, Bubba Pollard coming off of his win this past weekend at the Rattler is going to be big. Names keep coming in for the entry list, so keep an eye out for that. I'll put a race preview out for that later this week on that.
And if we didn't touch on it enough, the dirt late model scene, we're going to come at you with another Lucas Oil Heartbeat Hot Sauce pit preview for the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series here. We got 2 races this weekend at Atomic on Friday, March 22nd and Brownstown on March 23rd. So obviously we've been hammering the NASCAR on the podcast lately because they've been off for about a month here. It'd be good to get the Lucas Oil back in the swing of things, get rolling again here and see what shakes out. And obviously there's going to be some new names and faces in the series. So stay tuned for that race preview. We'll drop it later this week.
And last but not least, we have NASCAR's 3 touring series at COTA. So we're going to go a little bit of left and right this weekend, do a little road course racing. So be on the lookout for that one. First road course of the year. Do we have a 6th winner and a 6th race? Very well could. It's road course season. So this is where your dark horses come to play. Guys see an opportunity to lock themselves into the playoffs here. So
Yep. Well, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was done.
I was gonna say it just before we make race picks for that, way too early race picks. Just some other races going on. World of Outlaws, both the sprints and late models are racing this weekend. Arca Menards East is also gonna be at Five Flags. Bubba Pollard is racing in that one, so keep an eye on that as part of the triple header that he's doing. We talked about. Cars late models, the late model stocks are racing as well this weekend. And Formula One and IndyCar are on this weekend as well. So you definitely don't have a shortage of racing for whatever flips your triggers, I would say. So, well, should we make some race picks here?
Yeah. Do we have an order?
Yes, I am first because I had Larson, even though he finished 5th. We did really good this week, actually. So I had Larson. Kellen, you had MTJ, who finished P2, and obviously Hamlin won that race. So we actually did fairly good this weekend.
Yeah.
So I've been keeping a running tally of like our race picks and like the points that we've been getting off them. We had no change in the points because we all scored 44 points.
Just a plus 44 for everybody.
For everybody. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How are you keeping track of points?
So it's whatever the race picks are. It's just whatever points are rewarded in the race. So like all 3 guys got 44 points in Bristol last weekend. So I've been keeping a running tally of that. That's under our history and think tank tab if you want to look at it.
Yep, I'll be tuned in there.
If you're curious, Cam, you're in the lead at 180 points. I am 5 points behind at 175. Kellen, you're 40 points behind at 140.
All right.
That's where we sit right now. Fantasy wise, old Dietzel has now taken the lead. He's up, let's see, math, 8 points over me and up 11 points over Kellen. So we got 11 points split in the top 3. All right, race picks. Way too early race picks, but I already had a locked in favorite. I'm going Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, I knew that.
Damn it. Took mine. Cam, right?
Oh, Kellen, you're up.
Oh, MTJ.
Back to back.
Yeah.
He's showed speed, young gun. I called it on the previous episode. He's going to get his first win this year. I'm going Ty Gibbs.
All right, so we're all sticking in the Toyota camp this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm surprised old Michael McDowell isn't getting some love. I'm sure AJ Allmendinger's also racing this weekend, so
Yeah. MTJ, he serviced me well this week, you know, a P2 pick and I get second. I mean, a guy can't go away from him at this point.
I think a guy that could sneak up on this, and given I haven't looked at last year's race results to know this, so I'm going to do that real quick.
Nope. Give me the name. I got the race results up.
I was going to say Alex Bowman.
Went P3 here last year.
He's a guy that could sneak up on some guys this weekend, so keep an eye on that. So that, yeah, like you were saying, this is one that could bring up some of them dark horse guys, and I would put my money down on getting a 6 winner this weekend.
Absolutely.
I was surprised you didn't jump over the old SVG train.
Not for this. There's too much online in these race picks for me to do that. Maybe in the fantasy lineup, depending how practice and qualifying goes. But I got to take a little bit of I got to get a little more strategic with our race picks here. So, well, I think we hit on our promise as far as being one of a hell of an episode, a spectacular episode. Any final thoughts here before we sign off for the evening?
Nope. Dial into your favorite race for the weekend.
Yes, like I said, there's no shortage of them. Flow racing, cable TV, other streaming services. It's just we're getting the swing of it. Goddamn, is it good to be a race fan?
Yep. And be watching tires this weekend. New faces, new cars. And also, shameless plug, if you haven't watched the Netflix NASCAR Full Speed docuseries, quick watch. If you're looking a new fan trying to get into the sport or trying to figure out what's going on. 5
Midweek
episodes.
entertainment.
Yep, five episodes, 50 minutes a pop. They're interesting. Heck, if it can get my girlfriend interested in racing, I think we can get a lot more people interested in racing.
And we've had a hell of a 5-race stretch to get the new fans on board. So
Yep.
So with that, obviously, if you can make it out to your local short track, go and do that. A lot of them are probably starting to get going. Show the support. Go talk to the drivers. They always appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. Post your race favorites for this weekend. Any other comments that you got, we're always up for a discussion. Check us out on all of our socials as well. You'll get race previews later this week for a few races, but until then, we'll see you next week.